Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the recess meeting of the Will County Board for January 16, 2014. We'll call this meeting to order. And we'll call this meeting to order, and if all of us will stand for the pledge and remain standing for the invocation, and County Board Member David Hizzle will lead us in the pledge this morning. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, Mr. Executive, County Board members. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce the Reverend John Doyle of the St. Anne Catholic Church of Crest Hill, who will lead us in our invocation. Reverend?
Longer walk than I thought. St. Anne and St. Ambrose, please. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, Creator, Redeemer, Sanctifier, Source of life, Giver of every good gift. We praise you, we adore you, we glorify you. We know that you are concerned about us. We know that you want to be involved in our lives. With this in mind, we ask you to bless all the members of the Will County Board. Give them the wisdom that they need to address all the problems presented to them. Give them the courage to work to implement all of their decisions for the benefit of all the people of Will County. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Zagrosi? Here. Mustis?
Here.
Howard?
Here.
Ogala? Here. Izzo?
Here.
Moran?
Here.
Rice? Here. Harris?
Here.
Trainier? Here. Bible?
Here.
Goodson? Here. Freitag? Gould?
Here.
Balich?
Here.
Rizalone?
Here.
Winfrey? Here. Adamick?
Here.
Babbage?
Here.
Wilhelmie?
Here.
Hart? Mayor? Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, are you here?
I am here.
McDermott? Here.
I know you
Weigel?
don't recognize me, but
I know. Collins? Here. Berry?
here.
And Brooks?
Here.
Thank you.
25 present, 1 absent.
25 present, a quorum has been established. Entertain a motion to place on file certificate of publication, moved by Mr. Babbage, second by Mr. Berry. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Sure. Zagrosi?
Yes.
Eustace?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Ogala?
Yes.
Izzo?
Yes.
Moran?
Yes.
Rice?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Trainier? Yes. Bible?
Yes.
Goodson?
Yes.
Gould?
Yes.
Balich?
Yes.
Rizalone?
Yes.
Winfrey?
Yes.
Adamick?
Yes.
Babbage?
Yes.
Wilhelmie?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
McDermott?
Yes.
Weigel? Collins? Yes. Berry?
Yes.
And Brooks?
Yes.
25 affirmative.
25 affirmative, motion is carried. Entertain a motion for the motion to approve the minutes of our December 19, 2013 County Board meeting. Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Trenier. Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Hart, second by Ms. McDermott. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried. Madam Clerk, would you please acknowledge our elected officials and the media that is present this morning?
Sure. Auditor Deputy Blackburn, County Clerk Nancy Schultz Booth, our County Executive Larry Walsh, State's Attorney James Glasgow. We have special guests in the audience. We have Larry Walsh Jr., our State Rep, and we have Beth Ann May, our Joliet Township Clerk. Welcome. In the media, we have Chicago Tribune, Alice Fabree, Farmers Weekly from Bugle, Nick Ryer, and Southtown Star, Susan Lafferty, and WJOL, we have Monica DeSantis.
Okay. Citizens to be heard on item 9. We have speakers from Enbridge Pipeline to give us an update. And Jennifer Smith is going to give us the update. Announce your name and
Absolutely. My name is Jennifer Smith, and I'm a Community Relations Advisor with Enbridge Energy. Thank you very much, Executive Walsh, Chairman Brooks, as well as the entire membership of the Will County Board, and State Representative Walsh. We're very excited to be here to give an update on our Line 78 project. So just a quick overview. Enbridge Energy, we're an energy transportation company. In this area, we have crude oil pipelines. We do operate the world's longest liquid pipeline. We transport Canadian crude as well as crude from North Dakota and the Bakken region. Right now, we have about 2.2 million barrels a day coming through our system and being delivered to our local refineries in the Midwest and beyond. We handle about 5 billion cubic foot a day of natural gas through partners in the county, and as well as our Vector pipeline that originates in Joliet, Illinois. And then we have about over 10,000, we're approaching or just about over 11,000 employees, actually employees and contractors between the U.S. and Canada at this point. We also have a significant and growing green energy portfolio with ownership in wind farms, solar farms, and some geothermal activities going on up in Canada. And we are recognized as one of the global 100 most sustainable corporations in the world. So recently, probably over the last year or so, you may have heard about the prolific production that we're now seeing in both the Bakken area, North Dakota, Williston Basin, as well as in Alberta, Canada. Due to the increase in supply, and we've got some charts here that show, due to the increase in supply from these two areas, we have a shift in where refineries and where our customers would like to transport their oil from. This shift has caused the need for an increase in pipeline infrastructure throughout the U.S. Attractive pricing and security of being able to get their product from North America versus importing from other countries, external countries around the world, is driving the demand here. It's a little more economical for the refineries to pull from these areas. And again, we wanted to reduce the imports from outside of North America and create jobs here in our country, right here at home in the U.S. A little better picture here of our system in this region. We are a vital link. We transport about 70% of the crude oil that's coming into the region and being refined by our customers here in the Midwest. And that is about 15% of the total U.S. energy consumption that's coming in on Enbridge lines. So today we're here to talk about our Line 78 project. In Will County, we have an existing line. We call it our Line 62. It originates at our Flanagan terminal, which is just outside of Pontiac, Illinois. And the line comes up to feed into our Griffith, Hartsdale facilities right in northwest Indiana, just over the border. Our Line 78 project, we'd like to parallel the existing line as much as we can and increase the capacity. The existing Line 62 transports about 235,000 barrels per day. This new line, once in service, would carry about 570,000 barrels per day. So that would be in addition to what the line is already, the current line is transporting. It's about 75 or 79 miles from, again, the Flanagan Station up to our Northwest Indiana facilities, and the estimated cost is about $495 million. We've got a little better map coming up too for Will County. Our project timeline, early last year, hopefully you've all started receiving notifications, initial letters of the project. We hosted a series of open houses along the line, including one here in Peatone, that was in Will County, that was in March. Over the last year, we've been out there doing environmental surveys, design, trying to procure materials, and really getting input from our landowners and our stakeholders, trying to refine the exact route that we're going to be taking. The plan with all of our permitting and land acquisition, if everything falls into place, we're hoping to start right-of-way preparation this fall and then have the actual construction take place spring of 2015 with the line going into service in fall of 2015. So here's the current map and current route of our line 78. As I said, you'll see the blue route is the existing line, and the red route is the current proposed route that we're going to be taking. As you can see, a majority of the route we want to follow the existing easement that we have, but there are some deviations either due to development that's come in the area, trying to avoid environmental areas, different things like that. We've been, again, working with all of the landowners, trying to refine the route to be as least impactful as we can. In Will County, we have about just over 100 landowners that we've reached out to and that we're working with. Right now, about 95% of those have given us the approval to come on the property and to do a survey. We've got about 54 tracts already signed and acquired. When we're working with the landowners, and I'll kind of get into this in the next slide too, so we're looking to acquire easement, both additional permanent easement as well as temporary workspace. Let's see. Total on the entire route, so the entire 79 miles has about 273 landowners with just under 400 individual parcels that we're looking at. So before pipeline construction, as I said, we're working with each individual landowner to come up with an easement, new easement for the new line as well as temporary workspace, and it really depends on where their property falls along the line to determine how much of that we're typically looking for. We do have an application into the ICC, the Illinois Commerce Commission is who we're regulated with at the state level. And the ICC, when they review the application, they're looking to determine is this in public need, so they'll issue hopefully a certificate of good standing. And then also with that comes the right of eminent domain. Now, I want to let the board know and everybody that it is Enbridge's goal, and we strive to come to an amicable and fair agreement with every single landowner. We want this to be a win-win situation. In a project such as this, though, when it comes down to, to getting down to the wire, companies have to have that eminent domain to help them negotiate and come to a final resolution. Typically, it's a very low number of parcels that end up going that far, and even once that process, there's a prescribed process of notifications and different activities that have to go on. Once that's been initiated, we will still continue to work with the landowner to try and come to a resolution without having to follow that through completion. Yes?
Jennifer, I was wondering, could you go back to the slide before this and explain why most people don't know there was a change in the route? Could you explain that, please?
Sure. So there's a couple of big deviations here that you'll see in Will County and also up into the northern Will County, Cook County area. And the footprint that you'll see is some possible development that is being planned for here in Will County. And just as we deal with every parcel owner, we have been dealing with the landowner who wants to acquire that large green outline there. So those parcels, many of which have already been acquired by the state, and we could to make sure that we have a viable route that will be able to get to where we need to be, but we'll also, again, we're looking for win-win on both sides. So whether that be a government entity or a private landowner, we need to work together and come up with that. And then up on the northern side, the original line 62 went in the mid-50s. So back then, we weren't as sensitive to environmental areas and other high consequence areas along the route. So we've been able to utilize existing utility corridors so that we can minimize, again, the impact to stakeholders as well as to the environment. And that's always our goal, to do that. Any other questions on the? So here we've got some pictures. Pipeline construction is done in a series of phases, starting again with the clearing of the right-of-way. This is a photo of once the right-of-way's been cleared and you've got the pipe strung out. The next photo shows the actual laying in, so the pipe will be welded above ground and then we'll go ahead and lay it in. We get into restoration. There are a lot of public benefits to the project. When the crews are in town, any spread of construction on a pipeline could have about 600 or more employees, and those employees are staying in our hotels. They're renting houses in some cases. They're eating. They're doing laundry at laundromats, and just everything that you need to go about your business every day. These crews are going to be in town doing that. And typically, we do hire a general contractor who will be in charge of the hiring and will be doing the work. But typically, about 50% of the workers on these types of projects come from the local areas. They will be looking for assistance. Another thing we wanted to mention is we do have an agricultural impact and mitigation agreement with the Illinois Department of Agriculture, and that covers every landowner that we have along the route, and that prescribes different techniques and things that we need to do and we would do anyway for restoration, and that includes having the pipe be a 5-foot depth of cover over that. When we are pulling the trenches, we keep the topsoil separate from any subsoil, and then we have to be sensitive to that when restoring. And I think actually in the next, I have a really nice picture of a recent restoration a couple years ago that we did in northern Illinois. And then once the line is in service, we have an ongoing public awareness program. So that entails continued letters, contact with land agents for the landowners, stakeholders, continued contact with myself and others on the team. So just to show everyone all of the different permitting, we like to say oversight, authorizations, concurrence, approvals. We have a number of different levels as a hazardous material interstate pipeline operator. We're regulated by the U.S. Department of Transportation and their Pipeline and Hazardous Material Safety Administration, or PHMSA as we refer to them. They oversee our ongoing operations as well as construction and design of new projects such as this. The U.S. Corps of Army Engineers and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services looking at our water crossing and different environmental impacts that way. Again, the Illinois Commerce Commission, we filed our application in February of 2013 for their certificate of good standing, and hopefully we'll see that coming soon this year. Illinois Department of Natural Resources, there's an application that goes into them that talks about any wetlands or different high consequence areas and how we're going to mitigate that and what we'll do to lessen those impacts. And then of course we reach out to our counties and townships and municipalities to gain feedback, and again, we have a lot of little deviations along the route that come from the feedback because no one knows the area best than the local folks. Public outreach, so I mentioned we had a series of open houses last year. We've been sending letters and newsletters. We actually have another open house that we've invited the landowners here in Will County to come to January 22nd. Hopefully you've all gotten a postcard inviting you to that over at Village Woods. And the reason that we are doing this open house is because we have had some significant route deviations since the first time that we came through, and thanks to Board Member Ogalis for recommending that we do this. So hopefully we've sent out actually over 100 invitations. Hopefully we see some of you, and we will have similar type of format that we had before, but we will have representatives here. Again, Mike Murray, our project director, will be there. We'll have our land folks there. We'll have construction, environmental representatives. You know, we can really get into some details and look at individual parcels when we get all of the experts in the room. Notifications went to federal, state, as well as local officials, emergency responders. So Phil Damron is just a wonderful contact here with Will County, and we remain in touch with him. Also our local fire departments and different groups, we continue to make sure that they're engaged, and they'll be enrolled in our public awareness program as well, which includes annual trainings on emergency response for pipelines. And then affected in general public, we have an ongoing toll-free number, email address, and a website. The website is updated as frequently as possible, as there are large changes and different things that happen with the route. And the phone number and email address, if someone calls or sends an email, we'll respond within 24 hours during the business week. If there's something going on, we may check that more frequently or keep people checking it over the weekend, but our goal is to get back to everybody in about 24 hours. So that was all the information that I had to share. Again, oh, yes.
Questions? Mr. Howard?
I have a couple of questions on this.
Sure.
You compensate the governmental bodies when you actually go through their property, whether the state owns it, county, or whoever it might be. Do you compensate for that?
So there would be an easement negotiation with the landowner, whether that be a government agency or a private landowner.
Okay, but you compensate the governmental agencies, or no? Is that part of, same as a landowner? Is it treated the same way as a private landowner?
Yes.
So there's actually some source of revenue from that for the governmental agency?
You want to answer that?
The best answer is...
Mike.
This is Mike Wortham, our government affairs.
We need names for the clerk, okay?
Michael Wortham,
Thank you, Mike.
and this is Mike Murray. I'm Mike Murray, project manager.
Okay,
So
go ahead.
the best answer that I can give you right now is it depends. And I know that doesn't go into a lot of detail, but I'd be happy to sit down with you and talk about specifics.
Okay, and then how deep will the 78 be, and what type of frontage goes through this project?
So the depth of cover is going to be generally be about 5 foot, but that will, it may be deeper in areas where we're doing a horizontal directional drill, such as under roads or, for large river crossings. And then what was the last question?
What happens to the abandoned pipeline? Do you go in there and remove
No,
that?
the existing line is going to remain in service. So the capacity that we're looking for in the new pipeline is to be in addition to. So the existing pipeline will continue to run at its capacity of about 235,000 barrels, and then when this line goes into service, this will be additional capacity that will be loaded.
In the future, if it was abandoned, what do they do with abandoned pipeline? I'm just kind of curious.
Well, typically, Enbridge, we don't abandon pipelines, we deactivate them, which there is a PHMSA prescribed process for that, where the line would be cleared of product. It would be filled with an inert gas such as nitrogen, and then that would remain on our maintenance logs, and we would keep our cathodic protection, which is like a light charge to help with external corrosion. That would continue to stay on our maintenance logs, and that would continue to remain in our public awareness program for anybody that lives along that, which would also mean that it would be part of the one-call system here with Julie.
In the last part, just for clarity, I've heard different versions of why vegetation as far as trees, that type of thing, right? Why you don't have the trees above it. Can you explain what the reason is?
Sure. So over the pipeline itself, there are restrictions. We restrict any building of permanent structures, trees, as you said, and that's a safety issue because the roots of the trees can get down and if it starts wrapping around the pipe, it could cause some integrity issues. There's a coating. We use an epoxy bonded coating on the pipe that also helps with external corrosion. Now, you are able to still farm on it. People have gardens on it. We've also given approval to have access roads over the pipe. But yeah, anything, no permanent structures. And then that also, so we're required to do pipeline monitoring, aerial patrols. So We need to keep the easement clear as our pilots are going by so they can see and make sure that, there's no encroachments on there, that people aren't building permanent. And if in the rare event that there was an emergency that we needed to get out there, we can do what we need to do if that easement's already clear versus having to come in and clear the easement before we can get our folks in there to see what happens.
All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Perry?
I have a couple of questions. How many full-time jobs will this pipeline yield to Will County?
Well, there'll be about 600 construction jobs that will be on there, as I said, typically about 500 of the, or not 500, 50% of those come from the local area. I can't give you a good number as of yet right now.
Okay, once it's installed and running, how many operators will monitor it?
There will result in a few additional staff that we'll need to monitor for our operations group, but I couldn't tell you exactly how many that is.
And do you know how many isolation points you'll have running through Will County?
So the remotely operated valves?
MOVs?
Yeah, remotely operated valves. Do we know exactly how many?
There's 7 valves over the 79 miles, and I believe there's maybe 2 in Will County, 2 valve sites.
And there will be what we call a midpoint monitoring station, which also includes one of those valves.
It's a valve site with some added monitoring equipment.
Exactly, and that's in the southern tip, right by where Will and Kankakee County meet.
Mr. Moran?
On the slide you had that showed the South Suburban Airport footprint, the existing line runs through there. The state's going to allow you to leave that existing line in there? Are you going to have to go back and sleeve that, or are you going to?
Well, that's the discussions that are going on with the landowner right now.
Because when Judy asked you what was going to happen with that existing line, and I know the new line is detoured around the inaugural footprint, at least it's on the full footprint, but the existing line runs right smack dab through the middle of the inaugural footprint, and you don't know what's going to happen with that. It's obvious. I believe it's going to have to be moved.
We're currently in discussions with IDOT, and hopefully we'll be able to come to a conclusion in the near future.
Mr. Bible?
When you lay this pipe, do you have to, when you're finished with your project, file with local government authorities, perhaps emergency management agencies, the maps of the location of your pipeline?
Yeah, so, sorry.
And your maintenance plans and regularly update these plans with these agencies?
We do have emergency responder maps that are provided to the emergency management agencies. And we also have what we call an ERAP, or Emergency Response Action Plans, that we share with them. And then annually we have pipeline awareness trainings, a lot of times in conjunction with other pipeline operators, but then occasionally we'll have tabletops too to sit down and talk about in the case of an emergency. These are the resources we have in the capacity, and this is, and this is what your role would be. So that's an ongoing conversation. And yes, once this new line is in service, the emergency maps are updated and they will get a copy of that.
Ms. O'Gall?
Yeah, I just want to make a couple comments, and then I was going to ask a question. So what you guys saw up there, when I had to go back to that slide, that blue line currently runs from my property. It's not owned by IDOT. They don't own my property yet. So IDOT doesn't own everybody, all the land yet along that line. Originally, this line 78 was going to run parallel to that, and all the landowners in that area were contacted regarding that. Since then, I have heard, and that's why I asked you guys to come wanted you guys to come, because I had heard that IDOT was requesting them to reroute around where the runway was, and that's what you saw in that red line going north and around the footprint.
To put it back up that way.
Okay, thank you. So, so that's the difference for you guys to know. So originally, everybody along that existing blue line was contacted. Now, people don't know that you have the new red line except for people that have called and said, now wait, I got something from Enbridge, what's going on with that? So, is there going to be a point in time where you guys make the decision that you will choose definitely the red line because the airport is most likely going to go in? What if it would become determined that the airport would not go in, would you go back to the blue line, or what would be that? And then also, that's my first question. And the second question is, so the people who live on the blue, where the blue line is right now, they receive letters, they attend meetings and everything, but they don't know yet that they're not part of this other line, you know, because they had thought that, and they had received, because we are in that program, and they received a letter about the upcoming meetings. I guess you could say that there. And one more thing I want you guys to know, what they have, when a landowner goes there, they have really good maps, so the landowner can see exactly where on their property the line is going to go. They go by your address, they have large maps of every single person's property. So that really helped clarify people who knew it was coming through, but they didn't know anything else. So that's been very helpful to the landowners to come through and see that.
And we'll have those maps there again
I
with a lot of
assume so,
the land agents, so they can answer those specific parcel questions. The property owners along that blue route will continue to get our newsletters and our letters. And then, yes, at the point in time when it is finally determined and locked in that, you know, we're going to be using the alternative route, that would be communicated at least through one of those newsletters as well.
Any other final questions? Oh, Mr. Glasgow.
I'm just wondering if there's any advancement in the technology to detect a leak. If you get, say, a leak halfway between the two check valves, it's a relatively slow leak. Are your instruments sophisticated enough to detect a drop in pressure and know where that is before it bubbles up through the ground like bubble and crude or whatever?
Yes, and actually, I'm glad you asked that, because over the last 2 years, actually, Enbridge has upgraded the entire system here in the U.S. with new technology for leak detection. It's a redundant system, so we do monitor through monitoring the volumes of product that are going through the lines. We have pressure sensors and different flow meters along the line that are also monitoring 24/7 from our control center, which is located in Edmonton, Canada. There's, you know, one of our best defenses to that too is our public awareness program, and our landowners and our aerial flights are constantly getting eyes on the right-of-way to make sure that they don't see anything. But the remotely operated valves that we use these days, they can shut down and isolate a section of line within minutes. So the technology has definitely improved, just like in other areas that we see.
You know, I noticed you, again, I'm not an engineer, but you have 7 valves. This is quite lengthy line. Is there a reason why there aren't more? Because the more valves you have, obviously, the quicker you can shut down a section and the less oil that can leak out. Obviously, there's determinations that are made by your engineers as to what's the best way to do this. But at the same time, you know, we've had to deal with some leaks from various pipeline companies in Will County over the years. And some of them, literally, until it bubbled up through the ground, nobody knew it was there. And so we're just trying to, since this is a new project, anything we can do to be assured that that won't happen.
There are a lot of variables that go into determining where the valves are going to be, and that's, you know, the topography and the environment that it's going through, where the pump stations are, where your high consequence areas are, such as, you know, any rivers. I will say, I don't know if Mike wants to add on to this, but Enbridge and the projects that we've started and are working on now over the years, we've increased the valve placement and the number of valves on the lines. I don't know if you have anything.
Well, there's actually a group in Canada, an engineering group in Canada that actually does the hydraulic study for the line, and they place the valves pretty specifically where it's supposed to go, and it's really based on some of the concerns you've just mentioned.
And so on the existing line, one of the ways that we mitigate risk or prevent leaks too is we have inline inspection tools that we run through them, and the technology with those tools has increased so dramatically that we can now detect the smallest hairline fracture and nick of coating on the outside of the pipe from the testing on the inside. And we have a whole department, we call them our integrity group, and that's what they do is if there's an inline inspection tool run and there's any anomaly or something detected in that, we'll send a crew out to dig up that section of pipe, daylight it, do a visual inspection, do other testing that they can do on site, and then we can fix that particular anomaly that was found. Sometimes that just requires a recoding of that area. If it's a larger one, we may even replace that whole segment of the pipe.
Ms. Grenier?
Just a couple quick questions. Is this crude oil coming through, tar sands, anything? Does it get mixed up depending on what you're...
Yeah, so it is crude oil. This is mainly, it's part of our light oil access, market access program coming out of the Bakken region. We do transport Canadian oil sands crude as well. We transport over 80 different varieties from your very heavy to your very light. But this project here is part of the light oil access program.
And then two more quick questions. Are the EPA or safety regulations different in Canada than they are in the U.S.? Are they more strict or more lax or the same? And I was kind of curious too about our state's attorney's question. Why are the valves only every 10 miles? Were you guys, the pipeline company, involved in the spill in Romeoville a couple of years ago?
Yes.
And has that pipeline been replaced recently, or technology changed in that pipeline recently?
So that pipeline, that was our pipeline. It was external damage that caused the release in Romeoville, and it was, that segment of pipe was replaced immediately after that incident and has been in service again under our monitoring program. We have had some other integrity digs on that line where we've replaced different segments of it. To the question of the regulations in Canada versus the U.S., U.S. regulations are actually more stringent than they are in Canada, but even Enbridge being in both countries, we follow, the more stringent regulations, but we actually exceed a lot of the federal regulations that are imposed on us. One being, we are required on new construction to only X-ray or ultrasonic test 10% of the welds, field welds that are done. We do that on 100% of the welds. Before the line is in service, we also do what's called hydrostatic testing, and that is when you fill a segment of line with water, run it at higher pressures than you'd ever run the line at above maximum operating pressure. And that, again, is another way to verify the integrity of the welds, the pipe itself, and then once that's passed and it's commissioned in service. And all of that is overseen, again, by U.S. Department of Transportation and SPIMS.
Okay.
I have one more
Oh.
question. Could you please explain to how you're working with IDOT where this line crosses where the proposed Iliana Expressway would be? Explain, to them what process you're going through, because currently all that land is owned by private property owners, and there's a pipeline going through there now. So how's that with the Iliana Expressway?
So our land group has been working with and is contacting the private landowners on getting permissions for survey. Our government affairs and other project team members have been meeting with people at IDOT as well, talking about how we can navigate around this area.
Thank you.
Okay. Any, Bobby?
I just got one last question, I promise. The interesting point is, now with the red line, and then you got the blue line, I can see where the blue line, where it's going through, the property owner receives compensation for it, okay? With the red line now, where that is, are you going to negotiate with the current landowner, or are you going to negotiate with the state of Illinois, because the state of Illinois is going to purchase that for the additional,
Along the northern route there, the state
Mike,
doesn't
would
control
you
a lot of
use,
those parcels right now.
would you use microphone,
I'm sorry.
please? So everybody can hear.
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
The northern route that's showing there above the blue line, the Department of Transportation doesn't control all of those tracks at this moment. So there's a mixture of private landowners and the DOT that we're working with to secure that route.
Okay, so you're going to purchase from private.
There's a fair amount of private landowners along that route right now.
Okay, so they'll receive compensation.
Yes,
for that.
correct.
And then along the blue line, then those particular landowners will not receive any additional compensation.
If we decide to take the northern route, we'll probably pull back from our parallel path with the blue line there.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Larry.
Okay, everything? Well, thank you, Jennifer, Mike, and Mike. Thank you very much for a very thorough speakers are representatives from the Explorer pipeline update. Karen, okay, you can do it again. What's your name and address when you please?
Thank you for the opportunity, Executive Walsh, and the rest of the board members. My name is Karen Kennedy. I'm here on behalf of Explorer Pipeline. I'm actually the project manager for a project that we've got going in Will County, and that is called our Manhattan Extension Pipeline. First, and I'm sorry, I'll apologize ahead of time. I'm just walking around, so I'll try and stay in front of the microphone so everyone can hear me. Explorer Pipeline was commissioned initially in 1971. We have a 28-inch line that goes up from Port Arthur in Texas through the state of Texas and Oklahoma. We have a major location in Tulsa. That's where our headquarters are. We then re-originate material in Tulsa to go up into the Chicago area. The products that we have in our major pipelines are all refined products, including gasolines and jet fuels and diesels. The new project that we've got will carry what is called diluent, which is also a natural gasoline. This particular project includes approximately 18 miles of 24-inch pipe. The pipe itself will go through Will, Peatone, Wilton, and Manhattan townships. As we go forward, we'll talk a little bit about the 2 additional valve sites that we'll be putting into that. The pipe actually will connect our existing mainline 24-inch pipe at what we call our Peatone station, which is actually in Will Township, to Enbridge's Manhattan terminal that is currently located in the Manhattan Township. Some specifics about the construction itself. I could almost say ditto to a lot of the things that Enbridge has talked about here. We do have our agricultural mitigation impact agreement with them, which again requires the 5 feet of cover. We will double ditch the line as we're doing construction to ensure that the topsoil quality is maintained throughout the system. There are requirements in there, of course, for us to be able to go back in and disc and make sure that the soils are in good condition when we finish construction of the actual project. A little bit about timing. Our current startup is targeted for the 3rd quarter in 2015. From that, if we work back on our construction schedule, we're looking to start construction sometime at the end of 2014. Again, similar to Enbridge, we do have an integrity management plan that's in place once the pipeline is started up. We have extensive monitoring that we do internal to the pipeline. We do have, of course, what we call our leak warrant system. There's every barrel that goes in, every barrel that goes out to make sure that we've got a balance on the pipeline at all times. And actually, we've got a very short window that if we do see a discrepancy there, we immediately shut the pipeline down. But again, as was mentioned before, our goal is never to have anything get out of the pipeline. So we run the integrity tools initially to make sure if there are any anomalies, we go in. We do have an integrity department as well that targets anything that looks unusual so that we go look at any dents, any potential corrosion that we see out there, and just anything that looks different from the time that we had run the tools before. In terms of the route that we've got, I have several maps here that we'll leave, and certainly we'll work with you all, and if additional ones are needed, be more than happy to provide those. That shows our current route. Again, we're at the same place. We're working with landowners now. Several of the route modifications that we've made, we've worked with the Illinois Department of Transportation to minimize the impact on the future Ileana corridor. So we've made some significant route changes from what we originally had. When we did the preliminary engineering, we started out with the route. We refined that, again, to avoid ecologically sensitive areas. I believe there was a tree farm along one of the routes that we initially had that, of course, we wanted to avoid to make sure that we weren't negatively impacting that kind of landowner. Other than that, the one thing that I'd like to stress, we do have safety measures that do exceed what's required by the Department of Transportation. We pride ourselves on being good neighbors, and we are working to amicable conclusion of negotiations with all affected landowners. There are 62 tracks, private tracks, that we are currently working with right now along the 18-mile route.
Questions? Ms. O'Connell?
Hi, Karen. I represent that area out there, and I was just wondering, are you planning any type of public hearing?
Open house?
Yes.
Yes, we are planning one. We were hoping to get the route a little bit more defined so that we were targeting the right folks. But yes, we definitely plan some.
And then you'll let the county board know so that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Any other questions? Guess we asked them all first.
Yeah. I got off easy.
Okay, and no questions? Well, thank you very much, Karen.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Keep us informed. Okay, moving on, the county board member Denise Winfrey, please come forward. Present a proclamation recognizing Martin Luther King Day.
Good morning, Mr. Executive, fellow board members. I'm very pleased to be here today in recognition of the King holiday. As many of you know, yesterday was Dr. King's actual birthday, and on Monday we're going to celebrate Day of Service. I have with me this morning our Dale Evans and Beth Ann May from the Community Services Council of Will County, and it's through their effort and your support that we're able to have a day of service on Monday. The proclamation reads, recognizing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service. Whereas the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service Act, enacted in 1994, is the only federal holiday observed as a national day of service, a day on, not a day off, and offers an opportunity for Americans to give back to their communities and make an ongoing commitment to service throughout the year. You have that opportunity on Monday morning if you join us at Joliet West at 7:30. Whereas the Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service is a way to transfer Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s life and teaching into community action that helps solve social problems. And whereas this year's Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service will be held on January 20th and calls for Americans from all walks of life to work together to strengthen communities, bridge barriers, and move us closer to Dr. King's version of a beloved community. And whereas service projects are being organized by a wide range of local nonprofits, including the Community Services Council of Will County Incorporated, the National Hookup of Black Women Incorporated, the University of St. Francis, Joliet Job Corps, the United Way of Will County, and many others. Now therefore be it resolved, the Will County Board and the Will County Executive do proclaim the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday as a day of service in Will County. Be it further resolved that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive encourage residents of Will County to fulfill the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream of serving the community with a day on and not a day off, and to give back to the community. Dated the 16th day of January 2014, Lawrence M. Walsh, Will County Executive, Nancy Schultz Boots, County Clerk, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, seconded by Mr. Gould. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you.
Sure.
I learned that from him. Be very brief. He's a prime example of that. Now that it's been proclaimed, I would request that the county board members consider volunteering on that day themselves. Of course, there are some that have already called in and stated they would be there. But what better example of public service than on that day being there with some of those folks who gave you votes. So I want to encourage you all to join us on that day. You can dial 724-1142. That's 815-724-1142. We'll get you assigned to a team on that day. You can go out and do service with us. Right now, we're looking at about 400 volunteers, 200 of those being high school students at Joliet West that will join us on that day of service. I want to really give a special thank you to not only the individuals in Joliet, but companies that have stepped up to assist us to make this happen. We've got Great American Bagel and Milano's Bakery that will be providing our breakfast in the morning. Babe's Hot Dogs has stepped up to provide lunch for all of our volunteers on that day. And a group called Project Pride also gave us a nice donation to help toward those meals for our families. So there's not many places that you can go volunteer, get community service hours, and get breakfast and lunch. Thank you all so much for your proclamation and your support of the Martin Luther King Day in Joliet. It's happening all over the country, you all. We want to make it a day on, not a day off. And what we do here in Joliet, our goal is to see that happen in Lockport, Plainfield, Bolingbrook, every city in our county. Together, we can make it happen. Let's do it. Thank you.
Okay, next item is public comment. We do have a couple of speakers that have signed up to make comments today. So our first speaker is Mona Donna. Mr. Bonadonna, please.
My name is Robert Bonadonna. I live in Lenox. Before you again is the ordinance about the open burning. Last month it was tabled for a relook or some more input. Is before you again today with some minor modifications in it. It really boils down to public health. It is a pollutant, and to let this continue in the more developed areas of Will County, yeah, there's a lot of rural areas that this probably wouldn't apply to, but there are many where you have people living hands-on with each other, relatively small lots. We have incorporated areas that are surrounded by unincorporated areas, and unfortunately the smoke doesn't stay in their backyards. It permeates the area. If any of you again have been a Jewel on Route 30 during the fall, it's almost like you're running into a fog. And this is really harmful to kids. My wife, who couldn't be here today, works in a pediatrician's office, and asthma is on the rise. Other difficulties. The elderly, I'm not there yet, but soon. Not too long. They have trouble where they have to be shut in for a couple months in the fall and 1 month in the spring. And I do urge this board to pass it, and then down the road, maybe even make it more stringent, 2-3 years, as more facts come out about the harmfulness of doing this and emitting these pollutants into the air. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much, Robert. And our next speaker is Miss Marlene Matke.
And justice for all. Those are the words of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Marlene, state your name and your address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Marlene Matke, otherwise known as the Leaf Burning Lady, 2892 Hobart Drive, Joliet, Illinois. And justice for all. Those are the words that we all said for the Pledge of Allegiance. But unfortunately, there isn't justice for all in Will County unless you vote in this ordinance. The numbers of people affected by pollution are large. It is a huge population. It includes pediatric asthma, 13,979. Adult asthma, 39,759. COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, 28,000. Diabetes, 45,000. Adults 65 and over, 66,000. Children under 18, 193,737. This is not a situation that just affects a few, and it's not a situation that just affects a few over a brief period of time. The burning in November has continued to cause me havoc in my health. I would encourage you to follow the ADA guidelines and put this ordinance into effect in order to save a lot of people a lot of pain and suffering. Please vote with your conscience, not necessarily with your party. And I'd like to give a couple minutes to Mr. Glasgow to explain the ADA portion of this ordinance.
The nice lady came up to me before the meeting and talked to me about the ADA portion. There isn't a legal requirement that we comply with ADA with this ordinance. Other than that, I really don't have anything more to add.
Okay. All right, moving on. All resolutions from the December 19th, 2013 County Board of Agenda have been signed by the county executive. Moving on to new business. Our first committee, Land Use and Development, Mr. Weigel, Chairman.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, John.
First item is the public hearing for land use cases. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Gould. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Sure. DeRosie? Yes. Eustace?
Yes.
Howard? Gallo? Izzo?
Yes.
Moran?
Yes.
Rice? Yes. Harris?
Yes.
Trainier?
Yes.
Weigel?
Yes.
Goodson?
Yes.
Gould?
Yes.
Balich?
Yes.
Frizzalone?
Yes.
Winfrey?
Yes.
Adamick?
Yes.
Davich? Wilhelmie?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
McDermott? Yes. Weigel?
Yes.
Collins? Yes. Ferry?
Yes.
And Brooks?
Yes.
Thank you.
24 affirmative, we are in public hearing. Please be advised, absolutely no new evidence or information will be allowed once this land use public hearing is closed. Two cases to be heard today. First case is 6149-M. Second case is 6155-MV. Is there any? Ms. O'Donnell, do you want to be included in the roll call?
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone here from the public wishes to discuss either of these zoning cases? Anyone from the public here to discuss these two zoning cases? Last offer, anyone from the public wishing to discuss these zoning cases? Mr. Weigel.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. Second by Mr. Mayor. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Sure. DeRosie?
Yes.
Eustace?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Gallo?
Yes.
Izzo?
Yes.
Moran?
Yes.
Rice? Yes. Harris?
Yes.
Trainier?
Yes.
Weigel?
Yes.
Goodson?
Yes.
Gould?
Yes.
Balich?
Yes.
Frizzalone?
Yes.
Winfrey?
Yes.
Adamick?
Yes.
Davich? Wilhelmie?
Yes.
Hart? Yes. Mayor?
Yes.
McDermott? Yes. Weigel?
Yes.
Collins? Yes. Ferry?
Yes.
And Brooks?
Yes.
Thank you.
25 affirmative.
25 affirmative, the public hearing has closed. Please continue, Mr. Weigel.
The first case, 6149M, was not actually heard at land use. It was held up at the PZC, so we do not have to hear that case today. We will not take any action on it. So we'll move on to the next case, 6155MV. This is a zoning map amendment from A2 to A1. This is the combination of two 5-acre parcels. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Howard. Any discussion? Previous roll call by Mr. Babbage, second by Mr. Wilhelmie. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
We do not have to act on the variance on this case. It was approved by the PZC. As far as resolutions, we had one resolution on the agenda that also is being pulled from the agenda. The committee asked for additional information concerning this matter, so we do not have to take action on that. Our next committee meeting will be February 11th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weigel. Next, we move on to the Finance Committee. Mr. Wilhelmie, Chairman.
Good morning and Happy New Year, fellow county board members, County Executive Walsh. How's everybody today? Awake? Are we awake? Okay, I fortunately do not have much of a report, but I do have several reports to place on file. First being from the Illinois Department of Revenue showing sales tax remitted to Will County for the month of November 2013 of $1,435,000, an RTA tax of $1,737,000, totaling $3,173,000. And then there's 4 reports from the county treasurer, the annual, semi-annual, quarterly, and monthly reports ending November 30th, 2013. And I will move to place these reports on file.
Moved by Mr. Wilhelmie, second by Mr. Nero. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Again, like I said, I have no business to transact. Our next meeting will be February 4th, 2014 at 10 a.m. and I hope you all have a great January.
Thank you, Steve. Moving on to Public Works and Transportation Committee. Mr. Adamick, Chairman.
Good morning, Mr. Executive and fellow board members. We did not meet this month due to lack of any resolutions. However, I'd like to take a little bit of time to thank a few people. Last month I was not here due to a death in the family, and I'd like to publicly thank our Vice Chairman, Don Moran, for taking our agenda forward last month at the county board, as well as the help of all the other committee members as well, Pat, too. I'd also like to thank our employees that work out our highway garage in their efforts to keep our roads clear, and that had quite a bit of inclement weather with the extreme cold and a little bit more snow than we're used to. I want to thank them publicly as well for keeping our roads clear and safe. We do have a public hearing coming up January 29th for 143rd Street between Lamont Road and Bell Road. And I want to make everybody aware of that, and anybody who's interested can attend from 4 o'clock to 7 p.m. at Hadley School at 15731 Bell Road in Homer Glen, Illinois. And then that's pretty much all I have. Our next meeting is February the 4th, 2014. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.
Thank you very much, Wally. Next, we move to the Judicial Committee. Mr. Bible, Chairman.
Good morning, Mr. Executive, Madam Clerk. Due to an abundance of frigid weather this month, the Judicial Committee did not meet. Therefore, we do not have a report to offer this month. However, we will get back on track and meet next month on February the 4th at 8:30. And that is all I have for today.
Thank you very much, Reed. Moving on to the Public Health and Safety Committee. Mr. Babbage, Chairman.
Good morning, Mr. Executive and fellow board members. Today I'm going to be presenting Ordinance 13312. Now this ordinance has been going through committee, the process going through the committee for, I cannot count all the time on one hand. It's been here forever. So today, this morning, I received some amendments that did not go through this process of going through my committee. So what I am going to say is I'm going to make a motion to approve 133112 ordinance, amending Will County Code of Ordinances Chapter 93 pertaining to open burning or nuisance fires. And I so move.
No, first move, we'll get it on, get it
Well,
off the
come
table.
off the table. Okay, I'll move to take it off the table from December 19th.
Moved by Mr. Babbage, removed from table, second by Mr. Grossi. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Ferry, second by Mr. Bible. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried. Now proceed, Joe.
Okay, 13-312, ordinance amending Will County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 93 pertaining to open burning or nuisance fires, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Babbage, seconded by Mr. Weigel. Discussion, Mr. Mayor.
We're going to propose an amendment. We understand that this is an issue that has been discussed for a long time in committee this year. This is an issue that's been discussed in this county for decades. And it's an issue that we feel is one that has been discussed and answered, understanding that we want to be sensitive to the folks that are having medical issues. I have a number of folks up in my area that do burns and have properties that are a lot smaller than 1,000 feet, and this ordinance would impinge and infringe their rights to be able to do the things they need to do to keep maintenance in their yard, and things that they've been doing for decades. This is not something that has just happened over the last year. This is something that's been going on for a very long period of time. So with this amendment, we would like to do some restrictions of time. The amendment is out in front of folks, but I move that this amendment be added, taking out the 1,000 feet identified in the original and adding to it the language herein.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment?
Wait, it's been moved by Mr. Mayor and seconded by Mr. Frizzalone. Okay, discussion on Mr. Mayor's amendment. Mr. Babbage.
Yes, our meetings, every month, we have invited every member of this county board to our meeting to discuss the process. And today, after, I think this has been done about 24 hours ago, all these amendments, I do not approve of just throwing something on the desk and saying, here, vote on it in my favor. Thank you.
Mr. Adamick.
Thank you, Mr. Executive and fellow board members. We had, I would say, a fairly lengthy discussion on this in caucus as well. And you know, I myself believe that we, as human beings of this earth, we should have fresh water and clean air as a right. And I know there's been a number of people who in a number of years have burned their leaves and so forth, and perhaps for some of this may be a hardship, but medically, if you're in a hospital because of that, that's a greater hardship. And I'm a little more sympathetic to that. Could there be some common ground that could be worked out in some of these other lots? There possibly could. But we have a committee structure, and we've always been encouraged to work through the committee structure. I believe we should. I think that it's a good process, and when you don't follow process and procedure, that's when sometimes that you maybe not make the best decision. So I would encourage to work through the process. Everybody was invited to come to the committee meetings, like we've always been over the years, is to work through a committee process. If it's a minor tweak here or there, I don't personally mind it. That's the prerogative of every board member to make that decision, of course. But I think that there still could be some common ground to try to work out some of the things that maybe Mr. Maher and maybe some others that have some issues in some of the rural entities of the county. So why not pass this today? Come back to the committee structure. If we need to tweak something, at least we have something enforceable on the books.
Okay, Mr. Mustis.
I too believe in the committee structure. And what went back to committee for some additional consideration, I thought, was going to be the existing language, and you were going to look at it, perhaps modify it. You made a major change to this. You added 1,000 feet, within 1,000 feet of anyone who has any respiratory problem. Well, that in effect bans all burning in the unincorporated area. And because you made a major change, we didn't have a chance to respond. So we're responding now because we just got it. That 1,000 feet was not in there prior. So when you make a major change and then you bring it to the board, don't act like, well, you could have came. You made a change. It's, I think, substantial. So, in effect, you made it more restrictive when it went back to committee than it was here prior.
Jim,
So, you know, the 1,000 foot was added. That's a game changer, and we did not have a chance to respond to it until it came out of committee. So that's why we're responding now. So, so that's why I think we're having perhaps a little bit of a debate today and suggesting alternatives to the 1,000-foot restriction, which in effect bans all burning. Because as you heard the lady give statistics of everyone who has these respiratory ailments and heart ailments, well, I can't think of anybody that's not within 1,000 feet. And I do think there's other things that come into effect. If I lived on my property for the last 40 years, and I live in a rural, suburban rural environment, and you move next door to me, Joe, and you have to have a respiratory problem, or then I all of a sudden have to stop everything. Your issues trump my property rights, and many of these issues, by the way, were self-imposed on many people through their own personal habits, or smoking, or whatever. You know, so some of these people have these problems because of their lifelong habits. And I want to also point out that nobody has demonstrated to me that a seasonal burning of leaves has ill effects on majority of people. I know they say it affects them, but you know, I haven't seen any real scientific evidence that this in itself is going to cause us super hardship on these folks. This really comes down to neighbor disputes very often, and now you want to legislate neighbor disputes. I will tell you that, you know, you want to pick one class of people over another, that you have more rights than I have. And let me say, these are historical practices, historical traditions, especially in the rural areas. You know, then I say, if you're going to do this, then exempt nobody, including the farmers. Why should they be exempt then? Then just make it across the board. You exempt them because you have the pressure from them. That's why. You know. So for us who represent rural areas and state residential areas and rural suburban areas, you know, we oppose this 1,000 foot. So I'm going to let these amendments go through, but I'm going to offer another amendment if this fails, just so you know. It'll deal with the 1,000 foot directly.
Mr. Howard.
This is an interesting conversation. Actually, at the caucus this morning, it was interesting also. And what I will say is that as elected officials, we represent everyone. And many times it wasn't a personal life choice that made this problem as far as a respiratory problem. They might have worked in a steel mill their whole life and developed an emphysema or something like that. So necessarily what somebody does privately or their job, I don't think we should actually get into that. But the issue was this morning was basically that a major amendment came through. It was after the committee process. And I suggested that maybe even we need to go back to the Legislative and Policy Committee and just discuss whether we want a committee process anymore or not. Because what's happening here is basically issues are being changed at the 11th hour. And what we want to do in the future is just basically say, okay, if we do have a committee process, we do vote something through on the committee process, that we actually just respect that. And at this point in time, it was decided that what we need to do is pass the original resolution, and then we can amend it in the future. Now, today, actually, at the caucus, the Sheriff's Department came in and said, well, this is basically, we don't have the resources to enforce this. We don't have the resources to enforce the prior one also. So I think this, in my view, needs a lot more thought. And actually, I talked to the Farm Bureau prior to this meeting because I can't contact everybody in a moment's notice to find out what their actually input. And I think as resident or elected officials, we need to speak to our residents and find out. And neighbor A might want this, neighbor B might want this, but we represent both of them. And I think at this point in time, we need to figure out the balance of this and look forward. And we are going to have to tweak this resolution in the future. That we can all agree on. We might not agree on anything else, but we will agree that basically this is a work in process. And I haven't been here that many years to know the history of it, but apparently this thing has been kicked around a long, long time, and all we're doing is looking for a starting point today where we can actually pass something, get it through, and actually work it forward in a positive manner at that point. Thank you.
Mr. Weigel?
This has been before the committee for several months, and the 1,000 feet discussion has been in the committee for at least 3 months. It was in there last year, last month, it was in there the prior month. The reason it was sent back to committee last time was we had in there 100 feet from any structure. The committee changed that back to 50 feet from any structure.
Mr. Weigel, stand the floor.
And this was changed back to what is already in our ordinance. So the only new change was the 1,000 feet, and this was brought forward. Citizens contacted me. They had respiratory problems. I told them I'd bring it forward to the board, try to get them some relief. And I suggest we vote against the amendment and for the original ordinance presented.
Mr. Grossi?
Thank you. We've heard from both sides, and again, I hate to use the pun, it's a burning issue, but this has gone beyond just the months that it's spent in committee with this current board. This goes on for years. The one thing that's happened here, though, is, as has been said, very eloquently, I believe, by Bob, this is a committee structure. I know Mr. Mocker has told me before, well, it's just 7 people. This is the structure that we operate within. There's not only one committee that it gets vetted through with issues before it comes to the board for vote. It also goes through the executive committee, which is 13 members, which all of those pretty much are the sitting chairman of each committee before it gets moved to this board. There is a procedural issue. We do need to follow proper procedure. I would entertain the resolution that's currently on the floor, which was vetted properly through the committee. And then if there are additional changes, once it's gone through and if it goes through, then we can make those changes and bring those changes forward. Proper procedure needs to be followed.
Thank you. Ms. Trainier?
I just wanted to mention there's this really new tool out there. It's called Google. When checking Google and burning leaves, it was very clear to me that they are an issue and that there are definite health problems, and it's been documented by not only government agencies but by universities. So if anybody is in question about whether or not burning leaves cause problems for people in terms of breathing, Google will give them the answer that they're looking for.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, please don't believe everything you read in Google. I think that's the first thing I teach my students when I teach them.
University studies.
But anyway, this is absolutely a committee structure. It has been. And when good policy comes out of a committee and everybody agrees that that policy is good, we vote on it. When policy comes out that people are questioning whether that is the appropriate policy, it is the right, now it is the duty of the elected official to stand up and say, I don't agree. That your constituents might have a different point of view than mine. And that when we have different points of views, we don't necessarily create policy that is going to have to be revisited. We don't need another Obamacare here. We don't need to pass policy that then starts a process of writing regulations that then have to be rewritten if that policy changes. And to Bob's point, he doesn't even agree with all the pieces that are here, and he thinks there's things that should be changed. So why are we passing this to start with? So don't tell me let it come out of committee and just go with it without any changes, but then also in the same breath, Bob, tell me that you think there's things that need to be changed, so we should change them back in committee. That's ridiculous. That is not the way government should work, and it's not the way I'm going to vote in this particular situation.
Mr. Chairman, I'm unable to make that particular committee, and I try to go to almost every committee meeting, and that one I can't make, and I'm adamantly against this ordinance, and if I was able to be there and speak, they'd hear a lot of reasons why that are very logical.
Thank you. Mr. Frizzalone?
I agree with Mr. Mayor. I believe in a committee structure, but I believe the committee is supposed to bring policy forth that we understand how it's going to be dealt with, how it's going to be enforced, and what questions are going to be asked. We just heard from Mr. Howard that the Sheriff's Department doesn't know how they're going to be able to enforce this, and we are going to have questions from the people that can no longer burn as to what do I do with my leaves and twigs and branches now. We haven't answered both of those questions unless we, and yet we want to bring a policy forward. So I think all three of those things have to be answered, not just come up with new policy.
Mr. Chairman, one more last thing.
Mr. Howard?
As I stated earlier, this is a start, this resolution. And the problem with this is that basically the amendment, you're along the same line also as far as saying, okay, this is the end all of this whole issue, and I don't believe it is. We're a very diverse county. We have rural areas, we have semi-rural areas, we have urban areas, suburban areas, we have all those different areas, and it's very difficult to get a one-size-fits-all. And I also like to compliment Mr. Meyer on this. Mr. Maher goes to Washington speak, so good luck in the future, Mr. Maher.
Ms. Winfrey?
Thank you, Mr. Executive. We've heard quite a bit of discussion on this issue, and I believe we're at a point now where we may call the question.
Thank you. Mr. Gould?
There's a lot of opinion on the committee, Mr. Executive, and some issues, I think this is one of them, just need to be discussed at the board level. We need to kind of have that discussion that we're having today. But as a practical matter, I think we're going to have problems if we go with that 1,000 feet. It's problematic. In terms of enforcement, we'll have problems, but as a practical matter, for those residents who live in the unincorporated areas, if you live on those long, narrow lots, what are you going to do if you live within those 1,000 feet? A lot of these small townships, they don't have budgets to obtain leaf collection equipment. Townships can't pick them up. The county is not going into the business of leaf collection. So I think a lot of our residents are going to have to deal with something they haven't had to deal with before. The last thing is keep in mind our public hearing was held on September 12th, and this ordinance has changed quite a bit since September the 12th, and we've had no public hearing since then. A lot of provisions, including the 1,000 feet, have been added. So there's been no public hearing since September the 12th for residents. Thank you.
Motion on the floor is Mr. Mayor, amendment. Everybody has the amendment, Nancy? Everybody has the amendment?
Could you repeat it, Mr. Chairman? Repeat the amendment.
It's this whole...
Not everybody's got it.
Yeah, you can...
Not everybody got it?
They all got it.
Everybody has the amendment, Joe.
Yeah, everybody did.
Everybody has the amendment. This is what Mr. Mayor is presenting, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the motion is to approve this amendment to the resolution ordinance 13-312. Everybody understand? Madam Clerk, call the roll. Voting aye is to approve the amendment. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Sure. Zagorowski.
No.
Eustace.
Yes.
Howard.
No.
O'Gallo.
Yes.
Izzo.
Yes.
Moran.
No.
Rice. No. Harris.
No.
Trainier. No. Bible.
No.
Goodson.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Balich.
Yes.
Griswold.
Yes.
Winfrey.
No.
Adamick.
No.
Babbage.
No.
Wilhelmie.
No.
Hart.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
McDermott.
Yes.
Weigel.
No.
Collins.
Yes.
Ferry.
No.
And Brooks.
No.
Thank you.
11 affirmative, 14 negative.
11 affirmative, 14 negative. The amendment has been defeated. Mr. Mustis, question, comment?
Yeah, I'd like to offer another amendment to the proposed ordinance 93.018, location of fires. And I would strike the portion that says fire shall be located not less than 1,000 feet unless otherwise specifically provided for herein from any school, park, hospital, nursing home, and also residence of a person with a chronic respiratory disease. And I'll make that motion.
Second.
We don't have that written.
He's just doing it now.
It's no.
It's
It's actually page 2.
That's what's in the package.
Existing. So
That's an existing ordinance. I'm making a motion to amend the ordinance as presented by committee. Yeah.
What number was that, Mr.
Second paragraph of the executive where it says
Yes.
Location of fire.
Yes, that should all be, that whole paragraph is, and your motion is to be deleted. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Just, and nothing more put in there.
Nothing more for that.
Just deletion of that two-sentence paragraph in section 93.018, location of fire.
Yes.
Okay? Motion made by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Mayor. Is that correct?
Yes, and I would also
Mr. Mayor?
ask for a friendly addition to that amendment, if I could, with the 93.02, making sure, because I'm not looking at the current one, that we added recreational fires and designated conservations as a exemption. Was that put on to the final one?
No.
I think that was recommended by the state's attorney in caucus.
That was to the amendment.
Right, and what I'm saying is I want to add that to the,
Right, but the reason it was added for the amendment that was put on the desks is because you banned burning except in the 3 months. But if you're no longer banning burning in the 3 months, rather it's,
We don't have to do it.
it's not the...
we don't need to worry about that for even with the 1,000-foot rule, Mary.
Well, you can make it an exception to
That's what I'm
1,000
saying.
foot if you wish to.
That's what I'm saying, the recreational fires.
Sorry.
I think if this thing is just one way, I make sure that's the right language.
Yep.
I think if this thing is going to pass, I want to make sure that the right language is in here. And I'm asking that we add that as an exemption, that recreational fires and the designated conservation areas, like the farms, are not included, they're exempted. because that's not the burning of leaves. That's someone having a fire pit in their backyard and burning wood. And the conservation is the controlled burn that we do in our forest preserves all the time. So I want to make sure that that gets added. Would you accept that as a...
You understand? Our clerk doesn't understand what we're, and
I'm being honest.
yeah, it's honest. It's a very, very, very sensitive issue, and we have to make sure that what she put down as the record is correct.
I don't think you need to go because it's our, I think the only thing that would maybe need some attention is that the conservation, resident conservation areas, I don't think is addressed in this resolution that came out of committee. And certainly they should be exempt also, but everything else is addressed. Recreational.
That's originally
is in this resolution that is coming from committee. I mean, but I will, if I may, I would add for exemption, under exemption, the conservation districts also be included in the exemption. So that would be my, to strike paragraph 2 of 93.018, and to add under exception, the conservation. Designated conservation area.
That's your total amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm seconding that.
Okay. Discussion, Mr. Howard.
Madam Clerk, can you read that back to us?
I know, we're getting this. I know, we're getting this. Striking. Adding striking. Yes, I did. It's in front of you. It's on your sheet.
I just want to remind Mr. Howard that this is not a start. We already have a burn ordinance on our books today. That what's proposed here has been going and talking about for a long time now. Our changes to our existing burn ordinance, which will in effect limit people from burning. And I understand everybody's concern about people with chronic lung disease. I do really care for those people. It does impact their lives. But as a board, the majority of the people who don't want our constituents to burn support putting an airport in eastern Will County. And that will significantly impact the quality of air for my constituents. So you guys got to think about this. We want to protect people to have nice air. If you look at the Suburban Air Commission, there's all kinds of data out there about the impact of the jet fuel that comes out of the airport to the surrounding communities. So, and that is an everyday occurrence. That is not just when leaves are falling from the ground. So, you guys support an airport, but you don't want people to burn a couple times a year when the leaves fall. I am so confused by where you stand on trying to protect people with chronic lung disease.
Mr. Grossi.
Thank you. I really have to get, Judy, I understand everything that you said as far as we do have burn ordinance that's on our books. The issue has always been it is unenforceable, which is why it is back out there now, which is why we're looking at it. The changes that are being suggested now on the floor that everyone is somewhat confused about, I'm still going to suggest they go back to the committee. And then people that want an audience to be heard on those issues at least can be heard. So again, take it back to the structure. There's too much confusion right now centering around what's even being offered up to put into this. But again, this is a matter of enforceability. We have no enforcement with what we currently have. So it's a lot of words with no meaning. Thank you.
Mr. Frislow.
Then I think they should go back to public hearing, because 1,000 feet paragraph that was just suggested a minute be taken out was not brought forward at the public hearing back in September. So that it needs to go back. We have this much difference of opinion. We aren't going to let the public weigh in on this.
Thank you. Mr. Weigel?
We have opportunity for citizens to come at all of our meetings. Last month they came, or this month they came to talk about it. The public was here and they talked about it. This is on our website. People can look at what we're doing, and if they want to come out and make comments, they can do that.
Mr. Mayor?
But we've had new ideas and new thoughts come out on this board floor today. So because new ideas have come out, we're going, but it's not part of that committee structure that we've been talking about this morning. We're just going to negate that and not allow the public to voice their opinions. I think that's wrong. And as I'm taking a look at re-looking at the amendment here, or not the amendment, but the original, I'm not seeing recreational fires as one of the exemptions on here either on page 3 under exemptions, 93.020, exceptions, excuse me. And I really think that recreational fires need to be on there as part of the exception.
It's on page 2.
I'm looking at page 3 here.
It doesn't need to be on page 3, it's on page 2.
Then I want somebody to show me. It's not on there. It's
Mr.
not on there, guys.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Mr. Executive. Just for clarification, so that it's correct in a minute, Mr. Howard doesn't want to see anybody burn, or I think we're talking about burning leaves and that kind of stuff, so that's the way it was presented, so.
Ms. Hart?
My comment's going to be a little bit more elementary and simple. Bottom line, one thing I've gotten on being on this county board in 3 years is that when people go and move in the unincorporated areas, they do it for a reason. So we don't put these restrictions on. So they can burn. I'm in the city of Naperville, we can't, but the unincorporated can. The other point I want to make, our district, Chuck and I, we were sitting in Naperville, there's like Pietro. I still go back to, this should be by township. I know you can't, I've asked that question, but this county is so huge, what we have is okay, would be completely different in, say, in other parts of the county. That's all I want to make. So I'm maybe with Diana having it go back, because I'm a straight no.
Thank you. Mr. Hart, excuse me, Mr. Weigel?
In the original ordinance, in section 93.018, it says legitimate recreational fires shall be located no less than 50 feet from any structure. So recreational fires are included. There's a definition for recreational fires. Fires being used to entertain, cook, burn sticks, limes, limbs, logs, charcoal cooking, and camping fuel under definitions on the first page.
Mr. Ballage?
What Mr. Weigel just read was 50 feet. Well, I know at my house with that kind of a rule, I couldn't have a little bitty barbecue going because it would be 50 feet from a structure. And most of the places in Will County, you're going to find their lots aren't big enough to be 50 feet from the structure. So right there we have a problem.
Mr. Weigel?
Under section 93.018, fires contained in a patio burning unit shall be at least 15 feet from any structure. So you can have these little patio units, a little round table of rocks or whatever, you can burn those within 15 feet of a building.
Ms. Collins?
I'm on this committee and I've been hearing about this for the last 13 months. And I've got so many different versions of this. I have no idea where we're at on this right now. So I think it needs to be cleaned up and, you know, I don't know if that means it has to go back to committee or have a public hearing or both or all of it, but I don't know which ones we're talking about when we have this many copies in front of us.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks?
Mr. Executive, whether we can make a committee meeting or not, if our schedule does not allow us to be at public hearing, every one of us on this legislative body have an opportunity to participate in that vote. Whether you try, will Nancy Booth try to do her best to explain it the best way we can be there by being here today and voting. So, Mr. Executive, Madam Clerk, would you help us understand so that we can make an intelligent vote on whatever is on the floor?
Well, there's so many different changes with
Okay, so my understanding, and Mr. Mayor,
Hold on, Mary. Let's give Mary our attention on this issue, okay?
if I understand your amendment, it is to remove, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Eustace, it is to remove the second paragraph under 93.018. I think that it would also require the removal under 93.999 penalties. It would remove, you'd have to remove that last paragraph because that deals with penalties for having a fire within 1,000 feet of those various chronic respiratory disease group. I'm also hearing that we want to have designated conservation areas under 93.020 so that it would be an exception. What I am not clear of is whether or not we want recreational fires, which are defined as fires used to entertain or cook, may burn sticks, limbs, logs, charcoal, cooking, and camping fuel only. Do you want that to be an exception as well or not? I am not clear on that.
Yes.
Okay, so you want 93.020 to include as exceptions recreational fires and designated conservation areas.
Correct.
I believe those were the amendments that have been proposed.
That was my motion.
That was Mr. Muses' motion and second by Mr. Mayor. Any questions of the mayor? Any of Mr. Moran?
I just want to make sure I understand this because it's been back and forth here. Under exceptions then, recreational fires of all types would be under exceptions and they're 50 feet from something and all that's gone, right?
I believe the 50 feet would stay, but they would be an exception.
Okay, can I ask for an explanation from the committee then perhaps? If I have a barbecue grill on my deck behind my house and I'm cooking with charcoal, does it have to be 50 feet from my house?
15.
Where does, because that's a wood burning device, a chimney, not a grill.
Right, as the ordinance has come forward from the committee, you would be banned from having that charcoal grill. It would, it'd have to be 50 feet because it does not fall under the definition of patio wood burning unit. It falls under the definition of recreational fire. So yes, you would have to have your charcoal grill more than 50 feet from your structure.
Now we're making an exception.
Ms. Rice?
See, these guys aren't, this is...
Ms. Rice?
I just remember asking that question several months ago, and that you were given different information as far as what a grill was considered.
Well, I'm not sure who you asked the question of or where you got the answer. I'm reading what's in front of me, and I just read the definition of recreational fire, and it says fires used to entertain or cook, and it includes charcoal cooking. That to me sounds like a charcoal grill. I'm not sure what else it could refer to.
Okay.
And if I read patio wood burning unit, that's a chimney, patio warmer, or other portable wood burning unit. So that's wood. So
Thank you. I just really was just wanting to verify, because I had prior different information.
Mr. Roach?
Mr. Executive, in all due respect, our committee worked, Joe Babbitt's committee worked very hard on this. We've been dealing with this for many, many months. We thought we were at a point right now where we can say yay or nay, and obviously that's not going to happen. Mary will be up here the rest of the afternoon explaining to us what we have on the floor. When you finish, you got to explain the next one. May I suggest, Mr. Chairman, that we send this back to your committee let's show up one more time and get an understanding and bring it back to this floor in February. I hate to do it, we're not gonna get anywhere here. Thank you. I'm making a motion.
Are you moving the
I'm
table
moving
and send back to committee?
13-312 back to committee.
He's okay with voting on the motion.
Let's vote on the amendment.
Previous roll call on the amendment.
We've got a question on the floor that has to be either withdrawn or voted on before we, unless they vote to table. If they vote to table, then that's.
May I rephrase then? May I? May I motion to table and withdraw my motion and send it back to your committee?
Moved by Mr. Brooks to table, send it back to committee, seconded by Mrs. Rosie. Madam Clerk, call the roll. This is to table and send back to committee.
Mr. Grossy.
Yes.
Eustace.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
O'Gallo.
Yes?
Izzo. Moran. Rice.
No.
Harris.
No.
Grenier.
Yes.
Bible.
Oh, yes.
Goodson.
Oh, you were a lot more excited than I was.
Gould.
Yes.
Balich.
Yes.
Griswold.
Yes.
Winfrey.
Yes.
Adamick. Babbage.
Unfortunately, yes.
Wilhelmie.
No.
Hart.
Yes.
Mayor. McDermott. Yes. Weigel. Collins. Perry.
Yes.
And Brooks.
Yes.
Thank you.
21 affirmative, 4 negative.
21 affirmative, 4 negative, the motion to table is passed. Mr. Grossy.
Thank you. One thing that I'm going to strongly recommend, because obviously this has been going on for such a long while, there's such diverse opinions that surround this ordinance, to please make every effort to come to the specific committee that this is being held at and voice your opinion so it can be heard. We cannot have things like this coming, at the 10th hour coming back before a vote. It's just inappropriate to have things handled that way. Obviously, there are a number of diverse opinions that are on this county board. Let your voices then be heard.
Thank you. Mr. Musis.
If I could make one other suggestion, perhaps when the committee finalizes what they think they'd like to bring forward, I would suggest that we do have a public hearing before it comes back to the board.
Good point. Mr. Weigel, did you have your hand up? Yes, sir.
This ordinance was for nuisance fires. It was not for barbecuing in your backyard. That is still permissible under our ordinances. This is, you're kind of carrying this out to something beyond what's in our ordinance.
That's not what it says.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Babbage, we're still on your committee, so.
I got some more.
Yes.
Okay, I got resolution 1402, the resolution renewing the contract for pharmaceutical and consulting services at Sunny Hill Nursing Home. I so move.
Second by Mr. Musis, second by Mr. Gould. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Grossy.
Yes.
Eustace.
Yes.
Howard. O'Gallo.
Yes.
Izzo.
Yes.
Moran.
Yes.
Rice.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Grenier. Bible.
Yes.
Goodson.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Balich.
Yes.
Griswold.
Yes.
Winfrey.
Yes.
Adamick.
Yes.
Babbage.
Yes.
Wilhelmie.
Yes.
Hart.
Yes.
Mayor.
Sure.
McDermott. Yes. Weigel. Collins.
Yes.
Berry.
Yes.
And Brooks.
Yes.
Thank you.
24 affirmative.
24 affirmative, motion is carried, Mr. Babbage.
Okay, now we have 1403, the resolution renewing contracts for disposal incontinence supplies for Sunny Hill Nursing Home, and I so move.
By Mr. Babick, second by Mr. Bible. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Mayor, second by Mr. Ogala. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman, and February the 13th, we'll start all over again at 8:30. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babick, for first line report. Moving on, Insurance and Personnel Committee, Ms. DeGrossi, chairperson.
Thank you. We did not have a meeting.
Wait a minute. I know we've all just gone through it today, but let's please give the speaker the courtesy to be heard.
Thank you. This particular month, we did not have any issues that were coming before Insurance and Personnel Committee. Our next scheduled meeting is on February 11th at 9:30. And again, as always with all of our meetings, everyone is in the office.
Thank you, Diane. Next, we move on to Legislative and Policy Committee. Mr. Howard, Chairman.
Good morning, Mr. Executive, and I wish all our fellow board members a happy new year and a safe new year. Our next Legislative and Policy Committee meeting is scheduled for February 11, 2014. I do have like a 30-minute report right here, but I'm going to surrender that time to the Vice Chair, Suzanne Hart.
And I'll have a 30-second report.
Ms. Hart.
Thank you. Really quick, we talked about the local, our state agenda, and had a nice discussion for the hour. Then we moved on with Ms. Palmer going on with our federal agenda, which we are going to put up for approval for February, for next month. I cannot stress enough that anyone has any issues with the federal, or have anything to add, delete, anything, we are not going to have any discussion on this. We just would like to discuss it at committee, which will be on the 11th. So that's just the big, and I will make phone calls in the meantime between them. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
That concludes the legislative policy.
Capital Improvements Committee, Ms. Winfrey, chairperson.
Good morning, Mr. Executive, fellow board members. Capital Improvements Committee did not meet. The next meeting will be February 4th. In December, though, we did have a tour of Dora Holdings, and some people were not able to attend and have expressed an interest. If you would let Beth know in the office, she's going to arrange another tour for that facility. In the meantime, Steve Collins with White will be also walking through that facility to give us some ideas on what could happen for us as a county or not. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Next, we move on to the Airport Committee, Mr. Moran, chairman.
Let's see, on the 9th of January, the Airport Committee met. We approved the purposes resolution at that meeting, but it was after exec, so the resolution we brought forward at the February board meeting. I'd like to thank Kurt from the Land Use Department for coming out, giving us a presentation on the history of the work that they've done related to the airport. On the 13th of January, IDOT hosted a meeting for public officials at Governor State University. It was well attended by plenty of local officials and state reps, state senators. Our next meeting will be scheduled for February 6th at 8:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Moving on to the Executive Committee, Mr. Brooks, chairman.
It's a pleasure to say it's still morning. Good morning, Mr. Executive and county board members. Resolution 14-04, ordinance amending an ordinance establishing and designating the enterprise zone for a portion of the former Joliet Arsenal, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Brooks, second by Mr. Gould. Any questions? Question by Ms. Winfrey, right?
Not a question, I'm going to abstain on 4 and 5.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Previous roll by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Howard. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary? Motion is carried.
Thank you. 14-05, resolution authorizing the Will County Executive to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Shanahan to provide for the expansion of a Joliet Arsenal Enterprise Zone, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Brooks, second by Mr. Gould. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Mayor. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
14-06, replacement hires for Sunny Hill Nursing Home, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Brooks, second by Mr. Adamick. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Grossi, second by Ms. Winfrey. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
14-07, resolution designating the County Highway Department as the Will County Division of Transportation, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Brooks, second by Mr. Adamick. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Mayor, second by Mr. Babbage. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
14-08, resolution appropriating grant funds in the Health Department budget for outreach and enrollment assistance, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Brooks, second by Mr. Ferry. Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Ogala, second by Mr. Adamick. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
14-09, resolution authorizing county executive to execute necessary documents for the delinquent tax program, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Brooks, second by Mr. Wilhelm. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. McDermott, second by Mr. Ferry. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
And finally, 14-10, resolution transferring an increase in appropriations in various county budgets to fund the year-end shortfalls, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Brooks, seconded by Mr. Wilhelm. Any questions? Questions, Mr. Howard?
I just have a question for information purposes. In the future, when we have a question regarding like this item or something like that, who is the replacement for Paul Rayfick? Who, before we always would talk to him about this kind of stuff. Who do we actually?
Karen Hennessy has stepped up and is basically titled as an interim county financial director. Yeah, Karen's done an excellent job. So anything you need to in that regards, just go see Karen. All right?
All right, thank you.
She's got the same office, so it's not hard to find.
And she's available back there right now.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Babbage, second by Ms. Hart. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
Our next executive committee meeting is scheduled for February the 6th, 2014, 9:30 a.m., and I invite all to be there. Appointment by the county executive, we only have one. That's for Mr. Bruce Gould. Give him more work to do. Everybody have that? And I so move.
Moved by Mr. Brooks, second by Mr. Adamick. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Wilhelm, second by Mr. Moran. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried. Comments by County Board Speaker Mr. Brooks.
Thank you. First, let me thank Enbridge, Jennifer, Mike, and Mike that came and made their presentation on today, along with Explorer, Karen, that shared with us about Explorer Pipeline. Thank you so much for those thorough presentations on today. Also to the Services Council, Dr. Martin Luther King weekend, as Denise Winfrey have presented that certificate to them on this morning, the resolution. Let me also remind you there are many, many activities that Denise mentioned that is going on all of this weekend for that holiday. One of the things Ardell Evans had talked about, Monday is not a day off, but a day on, a day to give back to the community. And what a wonderful thing that is. So congratulations to them and Beth May and for those that received that on this morning. This has been a very tough winter. It's been cold. A lot of our committees have been so because of the weather. But from this day on, it's getting better. You heard that from me. It's getting better. So hopefully the month of February, we all can come out to all of our committee, public hearing, and ad hoc. We have 9 standing committees. We have ad hoc committees. And everybody in this room knows they are open to the public. And I know everybody's schedule don't always allow them to be there, but we do have caucuses. We can share the information, and we also have a right to vote. So please, if you can make it to all of our committees and ad hoc. And then lastly, remember Melissa Johansson in the homegoing of her husband Fred. Continue to keep her in your prayers. On last week when I had the exec meeting and I sat there, Mr. Executive, where you are, there was a void with Melissa being absent, but I'm sure there's much more void at her home in Crete. So continue to pray for Melissa and her family, and we're praying that she comes back real soon. We also, Bruce, told her to take the time, though, right? All right. Thank you so much. Have a good day, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Next, we move on to Democratic Caucus Chair, Mr. Grossi.
Thank you. I'm going to try and make this as brief as possible. I share in the pride that we were able to display today in accepting the resolution on behalf of Dr. Martin Luther King and our service day, which is going to take place on Monday. The accomplishments that this man shown in the civil rights movement is truly amazing, and it's affected not only our African-American community, but all of us as individuals. So again, this is something to be celebrated, and I hope everyone remembers this. I too want to extend my gratitude to our highway department, the fine job that they did, as Walter mentioned earlier, in clearing the snow when we got this. I'm sure we're going to get more before the season is over. So again, they've done a wonderful job, and I hope they continue to do that. Tell you where I live.
I said no more.
No more? Okay, that's good. That's good. I believe Kirk also mentioned the passing of Melissa's husband. We've had several deaths, unfortunately, within our county board family. I know Mr. Ferry recently lost a very close and dear family member, and I too lost a family member recently. And I do want to extend my gratitude to everyone who reached out to me as well. As we know, the cold weather is still on us. If you look at anything that's going on, it's going to reach once again the very, very low temperatures by the end of the week. If you have elderly, family, friends, relatives, neighbors, please check on them, make sure that they're being taken care of. And then I would also like to extend some thought over to Don Moran and Mangus. We had a very, very productive, I would say, second meeting, not first meeting. The first one was the organization meeting of the South Suburban Airport. I believe the two of them, in concert with the other members on this committee, are going to do amazing work. They know what needs to happen, and they certainly do have everyone's best interest in Will County. So, thank you. And on that, have a wonderful day and stay warm.
Thank you, man. Then our Republican Caucus Chair, Mr. Mizes.
Good morning, County Executive, County Jim. I also want to, of course, give my deepest sympathies and condolences to Melissa and her children and her family. Such a tragic thing for that family. But I think it gives us all kind of a pause, give a little reflection in our lives. 49-year-old, strong, healthy, vibrant man suddenly is taken from us, taken from our family. So, none of us know how long we're going to be on this face of the earth. So, be kind. I try always to be kind and thoughtful. You keep going great. And hopefully you do the same. Keep that love in your hearts. And make sure you like your family members. Let them know you love them. So, having said that, I do think that we're one step closer to spring training. Think spring. And thank you all for all the work you put in the last month. Joe, I'm not so sure you want me to be at your committee, but I'll be there. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Have the guy next to you come too.
I just would like to conclude in echoing all the comments in regards to tragic death of Fred Johansson and our good friend Melissa, and our prayers. Please keep her in our prayers. And I too would like to personally thank the Will County Highway Department, Bruce Gould, all of his supervisory people, and most importantly, all the employees out there that spent many, many hours this past month on the road and in some very difficult situations and keeping the roads open. A lot of our roads are the first ones that are opened in the morning. Employees start at 4:30 in the morning if they're on a call out. And some days when the wind was blowing and it was 45 below zero, they were putting 12 and 14 hours a day in, and we had to give them a break and make sure they could go home and get some rest before returning to the same routine. So I think we were successful in getting by without much in the line of any kind of damage to or accidents or anything like that. All of our equipment in good running order, and we had plenty of salt to make sure that our roads, our highways were definitely in great shape. So with that, we will stand at recess until our next board meeting on Thursday, February 20th, 2014 at 9:30 a.m.